it get annoying as hell listening to me over and over again explain, oh, I'm an empath, blah, blah, blah. And that's one of my biggest flaws, being self-aware. And I'm learning that I didn't love him too deeply or care too much. It wasn't that I was never taught boundaries, even though I wasn't taught boundaries. I'm not going to blame my parents. I was raised to fawn. I was raised to keep the peace, to be nice. Growing up, I never had any huge arguments with my brothers or sisters. I always had that need to feel understood when often I was misunderstood. And I know it hurt me deeply. I learned that early on my worth came from being accommodating to people, being agreeable. So, when somebody came into my life who was, constantly demanding of me and critical of me, it reframed my reality, and my nervous system was forever changed. At the very beginning, I didn't see it as manipulation. What I saw it as was that it was love that needed to work, and according to him, I needed to change myself for the relationship to work. We were so young when we got married, and I can vividly remember being with him alone in our big house, and him telling me that I was supposed to want to make love all night long. And that was his weird, it wasn't even a fantasy, it was like reality. I needed to make it happen. And I was like, all night long? That's odd. That's weird. And back then, I was still self-aware. I recognized that what he was asking of me was a weird request. I could reflect on it, and I didn't agree with it. I would often find myself apologizing for things that he would point out, and I would take accountability if I wasn't able to do what he wanted. But along the way, I recognized that my own self-awareness was weaponized against me. When somebody tells you that you need to change for the relationship to work, you better do a double take, because that's conniving. It's 100% manipulation. I believed him when he told me I needed to change myself. I truly believe that I should always be doing better. And when I was constantly being blamed for one thing or another, I was looking inward instead of questioning him. Even though I didn't place my boundaries at the forefront, I still had them. When they were crossed, I didn't see it as disrespect. I chalked it up to myself as me being too sensitive or too emotional, too anxious. Well, that's not a lack of intelligence by any means, that's conditioning. When he would comment on my looks, or why does your face look like that? Like, he was always critical of my facial expressions. I'm very expressive, and he would often make fun of me, like, oh my god, look at your face. Oh my god, look at the way you said that. He was always critical, whether it be the way I misspoke or the way I appeared to him. If I made an odd face, and I've always known I've had a resting bitch face, but I can't control, all of these things, and they might seem minuscule to a normal person, but when you're in a narcissistic relationship, picking and prodding about the smallest little things, it becomes a big deal. And I became aware of my facial expressions, and sometimes I tried to not smile as much for being, criticized a lot of the times. I realize that I don't I don't fully accept that I was manipulated, maybe because that's my pride talking. Or maybe it's because I want to project that I was not that naive. I knew I was with somebody that was mean. He could be cruel, but he could also be very nice and loving, seemingly. And so I missed it because I assumed that he had good intentions for me. I really projected my own integrity onto him. I thought if I can reflect and grow and be an example to him, this is the way he's going to treat me. It's going to be reciprocated. I treat him really nice and, do nice things for him. He'll do it back to me eventually. And so that's part of the issue with being a good person. You reflect too much on how you can grow, and you assume that others can too. You assume that they have the same integrity as you do. We mistake the consistency that we have for commitment, and sometimes we can be intense. And when you're raised to believe that love equals self-sacrifice, you'll definitely confuse self-erasure with loyalty. And that's where I'm at. I'm thinking, I minimized what I needed. I slowly lost myself in this process. And I think about my flaws. I'm very hypersensitive. I'm an overachiever, overfunctioning. I go until I'm completely exhausted and can't do any more. I work myself to the bone. I take on emotions that aren't mine. I overexplain, I adjusted. I bent over backwards for him until essentially I became unrecognizable to myself. I truly believed if I just communicated better, if I was able to talk, because he was always demeaning of the way I tried to communicate and talk, he ingrained it in my brain that I did not know how to talk, and I believed him. And I became more quiet, more passive over the years because I believed him. I tried to love on him harder. I tried longer, and I'm so grateful things finally clicked, because I always knew the truth. My body did. And I know healthy relationships don't require for you to self-sabotage. They don't require you to consistently prove your worth or earn basic common decency, and you're what am I trying to say? Just basic respect and common decency, common courtesy. I was fighting for that. And the narc will never give it to you. And when you do finally wake up, you realize people like us are not victims. We definitely are powerful people who haven't yet learned discernment. And I know that my traits that I carry with me, being good, having that integrity, they can't be taken away from me. This is who I am. This is who I'm always going to be. I'm always going to be a genuinely kind, empathetic person with patience, with loyalty, and this God-given self-reflection that sometimes I don't even want. They're strengths, though. And I have to pair these strengths with boundaries. And I do realize that the narc, my ex, exploited my traits. He exploited everything about me. He tore me down. And I know I have a lot of work ahead of me. I need to protect myself with trusting this process and sitting in this discomfort by myself. And I know in the future, if something feels off, it is. I will never deny my intuition. Going through this, it gives me that understanding that being self-aware does not mean taking responsibility for other people's behaviors. It means realizing that growth is mutual in healthy relationships, and it's not one-sided. You have two people looking at the same goal, on the same page. And it also means that learning to say no, it's not cruelty. Distance is not punishment, and choosing yourself is not abandonment. Me closing the door on him is not me abandoning him when he already destroyed everything. Yeah, he killed all the love that I had for him. He really did. I don't have any love for him at this point. That doesn't mean that I stopped being empathetic. I just stopped being available for his manipulation, and I really don't care to ever talk to him again or interact with him again. I need to, again, like in my other video, where I was all over the place, I kept explaining myself. I need to stop explaining myself to people, and that's one of my biggest faults, because I feel the need to explain myself. And I'm not making these videos to explain myself. I'm making these to see my growth in a year, in 5 years' time, and I'm putting myself out there, being very transparent so other people can possibly learn from what I've gone through. And so that's one of the number one lessons that I want to leave with. Just stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. We need to stop confusing endurance with love. And when we finally choose to anchor our empathy inward, that's a good thing. We don't lose ourselves anymore. And that's where I feel like that's where I'm going to find myself eventually. And that is self-love. And once I become whole again, I know that I would be ready for another love.